Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30. He's going to go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, fires the three, and
he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hope you're having a great Friday and ready to get your weekend started. We've got lots to get to. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com with us as always. And we're here at BB's for another Friday that we can get you ready. As you can tell, there's the shot back there of all the goings-on back there. I may have to take you back there behind just to see where how the sausage is made, Dustin.
It looks,
that's always a dangerous thing.
It is a dangerous thing, but in this case, I think it looks like or sounds like a delicious thing.
It is
of
always
all the food he's brought out to you the past couple weeks has looked delicious. I can't smell it, can't taste it yet, but hopefully in a few weeks I'll be up there, get a chance to sample for myself. Oh man, I'm already fired up.
Don't worry. Don't forget we're powered by our great friends at Andy Moore Honda, the #1 Honda dealer around. Make sure if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you need to go see our friends at Andy Moore Honda and Hyundai. They're located in Bloomington. Also, Endeavor Hospitality, the Wow Club, of course, BB's Market, a part of that. BB's is your local meat store caterer. No matter where you live, you can go to visit bbs.com. And they have an assortment of things that I will be showing you. Look at Larry. Holy cow. Look at Larry. Look at this breakfast Larry just got brought out. What, are you kidding me with this? Look at that. Look at that pile of bacon. Boy, that is a mess of sausage and gravy on biscuits and some hash browns. Look at that.
That's a good-looking breakfast.
Killing me. The bacon's killing me.
Oh, it looks so good.
I love bacon. I'm not going to sit there and make you watch Larry eat because that would really drive us. Man, that's a mess of sausage and gravy there now. They're serious about it. Chef JD, he does not mess around. How's everybody's day going? We've got lots to talk about.
Jim's muted himself.
Yeah,
there we go.
I just want to make sure. Lots to talk about. Indiana Basketball Media Day yesterday. We were out there and talked to everybody, somebody every 2 seconds. It was a cattle call. It was great. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the media staff at Indiana, starting with Jeremy Gray and JD Campbell. They did a great job of getting that put together, kind of mimicking off of what the Big Ten has gone to. It was a good setup. And I think they're already working on making it better for next year. They had the men's and the women's together, which was actually pretty cool. I got to talk to Grace Berger. I've wanted to talk to her for a long, long time. I have so much respect for her game as a basketball player. Period. End of story. Not men's or women's. She is just a baller, and I love watching her play. It's fun to watch her. And the women's team, they lost 3 starters from last year. Alexa Gulbe is one of those, and Ali Patberg one of those that have been long-time fixtures. But I'm wondering if they're not going to be better this year, Dustin. They've added some transfers, specifically Sydney Parrish and Chloe Moore McNeil, and they've got some three-point shooting, lethal three-point shooting now, to go along with the fact that you still have Mackenzie Holmes back, and you've got Grace Berger, she's an All-American. But so Well, we'll hear from Mike Woodson. We've got plenty of players that we talked to as well. And then, of course, football is on tap, baby. Big game with Indiana at Cincinnati and plenty of other games. We've got the red zone today. I'll get to brag a little bit about I did hit one you already know this, the one parlay I hit last week. And the one that my buddy, Jeffrey the Greek, his recommendation, his team, I can't really blame Iowa. It was Nevada. They were just awful. I'm like, dude, they missed the only field. If they'd have kicked that field goal they missed, I'd have been okay. If they hadn't let that late touchdown, I'd have been great. Didn't happen.
No.
And
what made it even worse was we had to stay up. Well, I didn't stay up, but you had to stay up until like 3 a.m. to figure it out.
Oh yeah. They
before
kept having
that decision.
Interruption after interruption. It was nonstop. I was begging them to cancel the game. I was Googling, what does it take to get a game canceled? What does it take for a game to be counted? I was whatever. I didn't care. They could have kicked that game out, and I would have been fine.
Right.
I wish they would have.
I think a lot of people are on that one because it was. I went to bed and woke up to see the final score, and I was shocked to see it was 27-0. But I mean, all those interruptions. They got their two of their better receivers back on the field last week. Spencer Petras didn't look great, but he looked good enough, and he broke a lot of hearts because I'm guessing a lot of the bettors bet the under, which hit, and then bet that Iowa would not cover, and that Nevada would at least hold them to 20 points or less, and that one did not hit.
When I saw Petras was in the game, I was excited, and then I'm like, no, this is not working out. This is not. They don't score. Oh, well. Mike's on, jumping on already. Says, I'm at the breakfast all buffet. It's more better than that. 5 lefts. Larry. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. They're all, as a matter of fact, all the interviews that we did do are up on the YouTube page. For those of you, if you've not seen them yet, I'll have to look over there and get a list, but I can remember I did talk to the women's players that I just mentioned. On the men's side, you had every freshman, Jalen Hitchafino, Malik Reno, CJ Gunn, Caleb Banks, gee whiz. Trying to talk to Tamar didn't come up there. I'll get him later, and I can't even remember them all. But we'll be heading to Minneapolis for Big Ten Media Days. Now, when we're up there, we'll be fortunate. We will have Trace and Race on the show, and I'm not sure if Coach will be on the show or if we'll record him and put that into the show. But we'll have all 3 of them up there. So it was a lot to get done yesterday. But again, thanks to the IU media relations staff for putting that together. Appreciate that, and a nice little dinner afterwards up in the Hinky Spirit of 76 room. So. It was a great day, good time to get started. I know people were excited to get basketball seemingly underway. So there you go.
And I'm guessing the energy is even more amped up, or the expectations even higher after seeing what Mike Woodson had to say yesterday. The team not backing down from those high expectations. Still, his goal is to win Big Ten championships and national championships. So. That fuels a very hungry fan base. So I'm sure that his comments from yesterday magnified that quite a bit because he's not backing down. We talk about it, and we've talked about Indiana needing to be in the top 3 or 4 of the Big Ten, needing to make it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, having a strong Big Ten tournament run. And he basically said, hey, if you don't want these challenges, if you don't like these challenges, then you're at the wrong place. So I think that's very refreshing for Indiana fans to hear. And then, like I said, the fact that they're already hungry to get back on the winning side of things, I think that just fueled the fire, and they're ready for basketball season even more now.
Oh, absolutely. And expectations was definitely the word of the day. It came up a lot, as it should, but that's because there are always expectations at Indiana. They have been wrongly placed for several years because things weren't being done to be able to meet those expectations. That's not the case now. So the expectations have returned, and warranted or not, you have to deal with that. But I love how he dealt with that. The very things he said. You can't run from it.
Yep.
I'm not going to run from it. I'm not going to let the players run from it. And I think they're embracing that in talking to even the younger guys, Jalen Hutchifino, and speaking of Jalen, not that I didn't already know this, but it's been, I don't know, almost not quite a year since I went down to the tournament down at Montverde last year and visited with him. But you can still tell that level of maturity, man, it's there. It's beyond a freshman, and it's like I can see. It's like you can see with Connor Bazelak that he has got that resting heart rate. That you know how he is in the huddle, why he's able to do the things on the field that he does. He doesn't panic,
Right.
And that's not just because he decides not to panic. He has the ability to keep things chill. I don't. I'd be like a man. I'd be like to go, what the hell was the guy? I'd be crazy if I was back there. But Jalen Hutchifino is special, different. And Indiana's, their freshmen this year, they're all good. And I'm going to be shocked if you don't see all four of them on the floor.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know that Mike Woodson said all four of them, but he said that we need those guys to be productive. We need them to be contributors on the floor this season. And you know, the thing that stuck out to me was, you know, I might not, in one game you might get 2 minutes, but it better be the best 2 minutes you play, because if not, you may not get another shot. You know, and so I think it's very suiting and appropriate that those guys are going to get on the floor. You bring in a lot of talent, but there's no guarantee that they're going to get playing time. One game it might be 12, one game it might be 3 minutes, but he's trying to get the most production out of those guys. But I thought, and the thing that I heard too was, you know, against the starters or the first unit, those freshmen came in and they got handled by the starting unit. And now, ever since then, it's been a lot more competitive in those scrimmages that they've done. And so I think that provides a lot of hope for Indiana fans that, hey, these freshmen are learning quickly. And as you mentioned, Jim, they've got a calm coolness about them, and that's something that's hard to obtain as a freshman coming into a Big Ten program.
Tim, listening to us down in Lanesville Heritage Festival going on this weekend. So, man, I wonder if I could sneak down and hit that. That would be kind of cool. Big festival going down there in southern Indiana. Did you know that's where Greg Rakestraw's from? It's hilarious.
I did not know that.
Lanesville is smaller. If I took a paint on the end of my pinky and put a dot, that's Lanesville. Great old town, though. Love it. But hello to everybody. Welcome aboard. We'll talk about the Boston Celtics situation. That's not good. But everyone else, let's see. I want to hit these before we get a break. We'll get to these comments. Jim Harbaugh jumping on with us. The LSU situation. Got that to talk about. Man, we got a ton of stuff to get to. We got to take a break. Alec Lasley is going to be joining us as well. We'll talk about the Big Ten Media Day and more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by and coming to you from BB's Market this morning, an extension of from our good friends at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. But come out and join us anytime. Breakfast is great, lunch is better, and dinner is incredible. But back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio here after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're visiting...
Oh, there we go. Edit name.
All right.
Bam.
Bam.
One, two.
Where's our boy Alec?
Alec.
I can't wait to hear an update.
I know. I'm excited about that.
Jim doesn't even know what happened yesterday because I haven't had a chance to tell him. We were setting up for so long.
Okay.
Little do we know, maybe he's gonna.
I can't put myself back in the studio. I can't put it back in there.
Oh, you want this back in here?
Yeah, I changed the name.
Oh,
BB's Market. Nice.
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo
You
when I
don't have
talk. I guess it's because it's going through here, and
maybe I hear echo on myself all the time, so that might be what you're doing.
well, I don't want it to echo on the broadcast.
No, it's not echoing on the broadcast. It's just in your
How much time do I have?
A minute.
No, Alec?
I don't know where he's at. I haven't heard from him.
Have you texted him
I will now. Usually he's here by now.
or call him?
Okay. All right, I'm going to mute myself off. Well, should we get into the segment first? We're kind of short. I don't want to have to be doing two things at the same time. I'll get us
Get into the
segment.
get
If
into the
he's not in
segment
here-
first.
Yeah. All right. He may join last second. We'll see.
This is John, the producer with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more.
There he is.
Hoosier.com and sign up.
How's it going?
It's free. You can
He's
also
like,
find
we're gonna start
full
calling him
episodes of
Indiana
Sports
football.
Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday.
You
If
just
we're
wanted
not
to
on a
make it
station where you
exciting.
live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Friday from BB's Market. Of course, live here each and every Friday. Part of Endeavor Hospitality and the WOW Club. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up. Start earning WOW rewards today. Welcome in Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. How's it going, brother?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Cannot complain. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com with us as always, and I'm Joe Coyle. Yesterday, IU Basketball Media Days, Alec. A lot to unpack, mainly just because we got to talk to so many people at once. All the players, we heard from the coaches, and I just said a minute ago, expectations seem to be the word of the day. That word has returned. There are always expectations for Indiana basketball, but sometimes they were unwarranted in the last few years. But now it's back to the point to where they're real, and they're going to have to face that. And that's one of the things that Mike Woodson talked about yesterday is they are one of the favorites to win the Big Ten championship. Can't run from it, won't run from it. Looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, and I think it came across as not so much of a cockiness, right, but just a very confident tone that not only Mike Woodson had, but it trickled down to Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis. And I think, not to say that Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson never had that kind of confidence, but it was more like you said, and like everyone's kind of said, those expectations are real. It's not kind of blindly throwing those expectations maybe that a lot of people had last year. You look at the roster, you look at now what Mike Woodson was able to do, and those expectations become reality. And that's the thing that I think with this team now, they not only expect that, but they actually see a path to getting to kind of cross some of those goals off. And I don't think they saw that previously. And so they come across a lot more confident in their abilities, but not only their abilities, but their ability to kind of help each other out in every, sort of way, whether it be the upperclassmen helping the underclassmen, or, some leaders doing small things that they typically wouldn't do. We heard a lot about Xavier Johnson and, the path that he's had over the last couple of months. Mike Woodson talked a lot about his ability to lead now and what this summer has done for his growth. And Trace Jackson Davis said the exact same thing as well. Just where he's come from the end of last season to now, it has been kind of astronomical. But when you think about the growth that Xavier Johnson's had from this point last year to where he's at now, obviously a lot of ups and downs, but I think he's now fully starting to become that extra leader that Indiana needed in the backcourt. So everything just kind of seems to be falling together at the right time going into the season. And that's what contributes to a lot of that confidence as well.
And I think, Alec, some of the things I took away from that was there's obviously an increased expectation level heading into this season because of what Indiana returns, because of what they bring in. But at the same time, I felt like Mike Woodson was almost relieving some of the pressure from Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson. He made a comment, when it came to three-point shooting, we got some guys that can knock that down. And specifically what was interesting to me is he said, Race was in a position before me where he was not allowed to shoot those shots. Now he's maybe not got the full green light, but maybe like a caution yellow, Trace Jackson Davis, he said he doesn't have to be a threat to hit a three-point shot. If he can hit something from 15 to 17 feet, he becomes a really dangerous weapon. I mean, it feels like there's a lot more trust in this team now that Mike Woodson's got a full year under his belt. He's seen his players. He knows what they're capable of. And then maybe we're starting to see some of that development that we've yearned for that we never really got under the previous coaching regime. I mean, do you kind of get that there's a confidence there? And while there's expectations, yes, he's taken some of the pressure off those players, like just go out and play basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now, coaches can say that all the time, but being able to actually see, I think, throughout last year, and Mike Woodson has now become such a player's coach, having that background of a season underneath him has just kind of, emphasized that a little bit more. I don't think anything's fully changed in what Mike Woodson's been trying to say. I think the players just have, not to say that they were not bought in last year, but it takes a lot longer than a couple of months to fully be able to trust your abilities, even if the coaches and players are saying that. And so I think a lot of that confidence is because of just hearing that over and over and over again, and that message becoming very consistent from start to finish in the last year and a half from Mike Woodson. And you don't get that a lot, especially going through ups and downs that Indiana had last year, especially in a program like Indiana where there's a lot of expectations each and every year. You don't hear that consistent messaging from players and coaches for that long. It seems like, at least over the last decade for Indiana. So having that from Mike Woodson, I think, just gave the players even more confidence to come into this year and feel fully ready in their abilities, but also know that they can stretch their game a little bit more, and it's not gonna hurt the team at all. So I think the one interesting part was the 15 to 17 foot comment that Mike Woodson had, because Trace Jackson Davis is never going to be a 3-point shooter. Right. I would be shocked if he takes more than 5 threes all year. That's just not. That's not who he is. It's not what's going to make Indiana really, really good and hit their ceiling this year. But it is that free throw line extended jumper that he's had multiple times throughout his career that he either has taken and missed, or just has not even looked at the basket for. So
Right.
that's the key evolution in his game. And to hear Mike Woodson say that, because everyone's been talking about three-point shooting with Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis, but to hear him actually say the 15 to 17 footer is probably what's going to be more effective, just shows you that, hey, it's not just about shooting threes for Trace Jackson Davis and being out on the perimeter. It's just expanding his game and expanding his range from 3 to 5 feet to 15 to 17, and at least keeping the defense honest. Doesn't have to make all those, but he needs to take those in order to open up the offense to what it could be.
Jim's muted while he's trying to talk. So.
I talked to like 6 guys yesterday. I didn't talk to everybody because it was tough, and I'll talk to Race and Trace at Big Ten Media Days in Minneapolis in a couple of weeks. But the ones that I talked to, they are already bought in. I did talk to all 4 freshmen, and I mentioned earlier Jalen Hood-Schifino's maturity just oozes out. You can tell he will be a leader on the floor, but I don't think it's something he's going to push to try, because he knows that you've got Xavier and Trace, but he's smart enough and has the basketball IQ that he could be a leader on that floor now, I really believe. But I think his play is going to be the biggest difference on this team this year, without question.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at, obviously, his ability to play off the ball and on the ball and provide some of that stability in the backcourt with Xavier Johnson. But, a lot of the talk has now shifted from having Jalen Hood-Schifino for 2 years to maybe 3 years to he could theoretically be a one and done. The ability that he's shown from June up until now to be a major part of this team and this program moving forward, but that may only last a year. And I think it was Trace Jackson Davis who said it yesterday in the roundtables as well, that he may not need more than 1 year at Indiana, speaking of Hood-Schifino. So, the expectations are there. Mike Woodson talked about it too, obviously not needing and not wanting to put all those expectations on freshmen, especially with all the veterans that this team does have at key positions. But he also notices at the same time that in order for Indiana to get to where they want to be, it is going to be revolving around what Jalen Hood-Schifino can bring to that backcourt and to the roster, because that was a position and a skill set that Indiana did not have last year, and really has not had with the 2 ball handlers on the floor at the same time for probably going back until the Yogi Jordan Hulls year, a decade ago. So outside of Jalen Hood-Schifino, you look at what those freshmen can bring, and we'll have a piece up on the site this weekend about it, because just the competitive nature that they bring, I don't think a freshman class at Indiana has had that in some time. And Mike Woodson talked about the first week or two of summer practice when that unit was losing game after game and losing scrimmage after scrimmage and was very defeated in what they were doing. And obviously, you want those guys to feel that, but at the same time, you need to know that, you're going up against guys who have been like a Race Thompson, who's been in college for 6 years. These are grown men at this point. But how that's shifted now in the last month, where they're going head to head with those upperclassmen and beating them at times. And I think that just shows you, going back to our point that we've made pretty much since they signed this class, how deep and how talented this roster is for Indiana from top to bottom, having potential 5 stars come off the bench, having high 4 stars, and a guy like a Tamar Bates, who was one of the best kind of late signings of the entire 2022 or 2021 class of last year. And you look at he didn't really have the season that he had, that a lot of people thought he would have last year, but comes into this year and may not even start again, but has been put on all these national lists of potential breakout players and guys who a lot of people are expecting to take that next step. And I think that just shows, the talent on the roster, especially when you go to Indiana now officially having a pro day with all those expectations and all the skills to showcase. So, Indiana has kind of all those boxes checked off. Now it's just about, obviously putting that together on the floor.
And another thing that that he talked about, and you look at the expectations, and one of the things I was really interested in hearing him say was, if you don't believe in winning Big Ten championships and winning national championships, if you're afraid of that, then you're at the wrong place. We talk about the talent that Indiana brought in with this recruiting class, but in my head, after hearing that, Mike Woodson's also looking for a mentality. We talked earlier, Jim said earlier in this show, Jalen Hood-Schifino is a kid that's very cool, very calm, very poised. And you've probably looked down the list of the freshmen they brought in, and you could probably use those terms to describe all of them. It was just very interesting that I think that, yeah, you want to get the best players, but also it sounds like Mike Woodson, when he's signing players, wants to look for a specific mindset. He wants kids that are confident, ambitious, want to win. That was just another takeaway from me from his talking with the media yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And you even look at the class of 2023, guys like Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton, really physical style of players who not only do that on the court, but have that kind of physical mindset and competitive nature. And, a lot of these guys have chips on their shoulder, even if they are 5 stars like Jalen Hood-Schifino or Malik Renault, right? Maybe guys who aren't thought about as true one and dones. And maybe that's, what they wish they were thought of. Maybe that's not even the right mindset that they were kind of looking for. But I think a lot of people, even with this class, kind of look at, the 4 players top to bottom, and nationally that is, and maybe kind of even underrates them. And so I think, even a guy like CJ Gunn, a guy like Caleb Banks, who probably no one really knows nationally, really, really talented players who are coming to Indiana to not just sniff minutes. They're coming right to play major roles, whether that be this year, next year. They're coming to do it a lot sooner than what typical freshmen in their standing probably come to do. And that just shows you, back to your point, the mindset that Mike Woodson's going after. And that's going to help this team a lot more than just a talented player, because you need that stability and that competitiveness to raise the level of others. And that's what Indiana's not had, again, for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
And for them also to say, or for him to say, we need these guys to come in, we need them to be contributors. At the same time, if I only put you in for 2 minutes, it better be the best 2 minutes you ever play, because if you're not playing hard, you're not making contributions to this team, I may not look your direction again next time. I mean, he knows that the freshmen need to come in and play well for Indiana to have a chance to be where the expectations are. But at the same time, he's not going to play him just to play him.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have, I would say, very outside of Jalen Hood-Schifino, they have very specific roles of what they would be coming into to contribute for. And that goes back to the point, even, this is what the NBA does, and what the NBA has kind of made their trademark off of having, obviously a team of players, but very specific areas of skill sets. And that's what Mike Woodson's trying to build here. And if you're not able to contribute that's very specific skill set, whether that be shooting, defense, playmaking, whatever that may be, one, if you're not bought into that role, and 2, if you're not able to contribute that role, then he sees no need for you on the floor, obviously. And that just goes back to obviously needing to stay prepared. But he does a very, very good job of keeping these players engaged throughout the season. Obviously, in the short time that he's been on the sidelines, of if he needs someone, they typically do step up in that moment. Now, last year, it just didn't happen consistently enough. But that goes back to the talent level last year to this year, and the significant upgrades at multiple positions that Indiana's made.
And Jim's still on mute.
I do that to keep the noise. The 3-point shooting has been something that everybody's talked about for years now. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. Not because I think they're going to lead the nation in 3-point shooting, but they don't have to. They just need to be efficient. with it. I mean, if you're putting up 12 3-pointers and you're hitting 5, that's not bad. I don't know what that percentage is, but it's just under 50%. So that's not bad. They don't have to lead the nation in 3-point shooters. I bet you if you looked at the Final Four teams last year, how many of them weren't prolific in it. They just were efficient. They weren't terrible at it. And Indiana just has to be efficient. They don't have to be great at it. And I think that Jalen Hood-Schifino, maybe CJ Gunn, maybe the pressure is taken off of Miller Kopp because he sure seems very relaxed. And I think that he's probably going to have a better shooting year. There's going to be a lot of things that are taken off of his shoulders on the floor when you got Jalen Hood-Schifino out there now instead of someone that they didn't get enough from last year. And I think that when you add guys like Caleb Banks, who I also hear is shooting the ball well, I just think the shooting is not going to be an issue for Indiana.
Yeah, and they're like you said, they're not going to lead the country in not only attempts but makes. They just need to obviously increase on that, 32.5% roughly of what they've basically been at the last 6 years, and that is really and realistically only about 1 to 2 made threes more a game, and that should not be difficult. I think Miller Kopp. I thought the worst thing that, and worse is not the right word here, but the worst thing that could have happened was having Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart on the floor at the same time, 2 very, very similar skill sets, and no spacing from the front court, and also no real playmaking outside of Xavier Johnson. And now you add in another playmaker in Jalen Hood-Schifino. You help space the floor with what now seems to be 4-round-1, a true 4-round-1, not kind of a makeshift one that Mike Woodson was trying to kind of make with that roster last year. And you have the main shooter in Miller Kopp, who's now going to be able to have that be his specialty, which last year obviously turned into Parker Stewart in his specialty, and you kind of had Miller Kopp there in a weird kind of role. So I think in total, Indiana is definitely going to be better than last year in terms of shooting the ball, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be a significant upgrade. But at the same time, all you need is 1 or 2 made threes more, and that's going to dramatically impact and improve your offense.
Break.
Yeah, I think we gotta take a break here. I don't know if Jim can hear us or not. I also don't know if he's got a read.
We'll go ahead and get into
break.
Alec, you can stick around if you want. You don't have to. If you want to stick for your second segment, that's okay. But we're going to go ahead and take our next break. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Go Team Bites. Jim would have a fancy live read if he was here about how awesome Go Team is, and a lot of people seem to be very interested in this. So go ahead and check those out. We'll be back right after.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. Sorry, I lost you. I couldn't hear anything. But yeah, heading to a break. Thanks a lot. We're coming to you from BB's Market. Alec will be back with us for another segment, right? And John, if you have any of those clips, you may have one of those clips ready from yesterday is great as well. Hey, don't forget Go Team, one of the great products under the Endeavor Hospitality umbrella. You can get that here or order online at goteam.com. We'll make sure you get that order. You can also add Coil 10 to your order, COYLE 10, and you get 10% off of that as well. But we'll talk more about that when we come back live from here at BB's Market. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Jim, right when you popped in, you didn't hear anything I had said, but you repeated everything that I had just did.
Well, you can edit me out if you need to.
Here, stop muting yourself too. The ambient noise is not invasive at all. I promise.
Okay, it sounds terrible in my ear.
It's probably just because you're there and everything's louder where you're at, but it's fine here. I promise.
Alec, what else do you have?
Obviously, recruiting wise, Derek Queen and McNeely, their visit is this weekend. So that's obviously a big one. Asa Newell, I don't know if we talked. Yeah, I think I was gone last week when that popped up. So his visit's scheduled for later in October. So obviously that's
He's also
three.
Montverde. Those are all three Montverde guys.
Yep.
Is this going to be a stupid question if I ask it on air as to why they're not bringing those guys on campus next weekend? Is that a dumb question?
Well, there's a ton going on. I mean, it's
homecoming.
Their schedule.
No, that's 2 weeks from now.
You're talking for Hoosier Hysteria for that whole weekend?
October 8th. Yeah, for October 8th and that homecoming, and they're doing the NBA thing. And is it Hoosier Hysteria as well? Is that what? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, especially with these two, they want it to be more intimate. And when they have, obviously 7, 8, 9 guys that'll be there, some on officials, some on unofficials, mostly on unofficials. There's so much going on, and especially with Hoosier Hysteria, that's and the pro day, that's basically a full day that they're not going to be able to spend with the players.
Gotcha.
So bringing them in, unfortunately, it just happens to be not on a home football game. But at the same time, I think this weekend still is going to be a good visit for both of them to be able to spend a lot of time with the players and coaches and not really have any sort of other distractions.
Okay. If you guys mentioned that, I might ask that on air. I guess it's not as dumb as I thought. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like some sort of recruiting dead period or something like that, where everybody's like, well, why would that?
Because they already have that
15.
I think there's 7 confirmed unofficial visitors for Hoosier Hysteria already.
All right. Who knows if Tim will be back on time? Here we go.
MoreHonda.com. Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from BB's Market, as we do each and every Friday. Brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Lee walking in, Helen walking in, joining the audience now. Enjoy having people come in, and it's just going to cost me more money. I'm buying more breakfast. Welcome back. Alec, Lasley with us from thehoosier.com, Dustin Schutte from outsider.com as well. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com if you haven't already and sign up and get yourself a subscription. It is only $8 a month for complete coverage on Indiana basketball news and recruiting. And speaking of recruiting, Alec, this is a big weekend for Indiana as Derek Queen and Liam McNeely, both Montverde products now, and teammates. Well, at least not Liam McNeely wasn't, Derek Queen was, former teammate of Malik Raynaud and Jalen Hood-Schifino, which that has to be a little bit positive for Indiana, but we've heard a lot about Derek Queen having interest elsewhere. But big weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to have 2 teammates, regardless of how long they've been together, come on official visits at the same time, just shows you kind of what Indiana's trying to do, especially with the Montverde connection. Obviously having Jalen Hood-Schifino and Malik Raynaud already there. But the biggest thing is both of these guys are very, very much interested in Indiana. Both their first official visits as class of 2024 prospects, both going to Indiana. Liam McNeely doesn't have any other ones scheduled at the moment. Derek Queen had one scheduled to Maryland, but had to move that around. So this is their first real taste of official visits. And when you see what Indiana's been able to do at least when getting guys on campus, it's pretty much been an A to an A+ every single time. Now, obviously, that hasn't resulted in any sort of landing of commitment throughout this summer. But to have both of those guys at the same time just shows you what they're trying to do, and being able to not only kind of show them clips of how they would be able to be used together, and having guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino and Malik Renault to kind of show different clips of and how they're going to use them, I think is very much going to be similar to how they would use McNeely and Derek Queen. So it's a big weekend for Indiana. Indiana's done a phenomenal job up to this point with both. I would say Indiana and Texas are definitely the two that stand out for Liam McNeely. And then Maryland probably has the slight edge at the moment when it comes to Derek Queen, being a local kid before he left to go to Florida here. So, Indiana's in the thick of it with both of them, if not leading. So definitely an important couple days for Indiana.
Well, I mean, whenever you hear the word Maryland, it makes you wince a little bit because they have done a superb job recruiting this summer. As a matter of fact, landed a couple of the players already that Indiana was deeply going after. And this could be another one, and they also happen to be from that area. So you're not going to win every battle, no matter what. Derek Queen would be a great one to add. But I love Liam McNeely. He reminds me of an older, more mature Trent Sisley. Same style, body style, but he's just more mature. But, man, Mike Woodson loves those 6'7", 6'8", athletic wing guys that can get it done.
Yeah, and in Liam McNeely, the main difference between him and Trent Sisley is McNeely is a much more skilled playmaker. He's a guy who plays a lot on the ball, basically a 6'7" kind of wing playmaker and wing point guard, if you would. But a guy who not only can create with the ball in his hand, but does a phenomenal job getting his teammates into a nice rhythm. Doesn't force a ton. He can get to the basket at will, which I think is very hard to come by, especially when you look at his overall offensive game. He's also a terrific shooter. He basically has as close to kind of the full package, the full arsenal that you could have as a rising junior here offensively. And that's what makes him so intriguing because of what he's able to do with the ball. And Indiana hasn't had a guy like that in a long time. You don't find a lot of guys like that who are 6'7", who can play very much on the ball and be very much a point guard and playmaker for the offense, but also play off the ball and be able to find his shot whenever need be and not basically force anything. He played up for Drive Nation on EYBL and did a phenomenal job. He was one of the most efficient players in the summer, and that just shows you his ability to kind of pick his spots and show up when he needs to and not typically force anything that a lot of kids like to do this summer. So, if you're grading kind of 2024 guys, Liam McNeely is definitely at the top of my list for what Indiana needs. Derek Queen, not far behind, but Liam McNeely is definitely, I would say, at the top when it comes to overall skill set of what Indiana would need going into that class.
Yeah, absolutely, because they've got Logan Duncombe, which he's a different type player. We haven't heard a lot about him, but we see a lot of comments here today from Trace Jackson-Davis yesterday and Race Thompson, both commenting about his development. So if that happens, then that's also a plus for Indiana. If Logan Duncombe can bring in minutes, because you're already expecting minutes from Malik Renault, he's going to be on the floor. We haven't even talked about Tamar Bates. We haven't talked about Jordan Geronimo. We don't know how much they've developed, but those are key, very, very important things right there, because those are the roles where we're talking. You got a lot of guys that are shooting for those minutes, whether it's Malik Renault, Race Thompson, Miller Kopp, Tamar Bates, Jordan Geronimo. You got a lot of guys right there that are fighting for that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes back to the talent level on the team. I think while both Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson were very adamant about the improvement that Logan Duncombe made this offseason. I still don't see a lot of minutes for him. I think you go back to some spot minutes, kind of very similar to what Michael Durr played last year for Indiana. Maybe not even to that amount. But when you have a guy like Malik Renault coming off the bench, it gives you that flexibility to not have to force anything with someone who may not be ready for 15 minutes, even 10 minutes a night. And that's what goes into bringing in a talent like Malik Renault and getting him so late in the recruiting period. But I think the front court overall, not only one of the best in the Big Ten, but you look around the country and not many people have the experience that Indiana has in the front court, but also the versatility and the talent from top to bottom when you throw in Jordan Geronimo into that group. Granted, he's probably going to see some more minutes on the wing. We'll see how that develops throughout the season. But going back to your point in terms of kind of the minutes, I think the biggest kind of question mark is Jordan Geronimo and what specific role he plays for this team. Obviously, the way that he finished last year, I think a lot of people expected a huge jump for him. And you look at what Mike Woodson and what Jordan Geronimo is trying to do now, and that's be more of a perimeter-oriented player. And I don't know necessarily if that's going to be super effective unless he can find some sort of consistent outside jumper. He's not a terrific ball handler, and that's what you're going to need when you have that athletic ability on the perimeter. Not to be a great ball handler, but just someone who can get that quick first step and get the defender on his hip, and then after that, it's basically game over. But we haven't seen that from him. So if he's not going to be playing on the block and in the paint, which he has in the past, he needs to find some consistency from the perimeter in order to truly help his team. Defensively, no issue there. I think that's going to be where he makes his mark this year. So it wouldn't shock me to not see his numbers offensively go up that much. But his overall consistency may be there a little bit more. So I think he's the key to this team. I know a lot of people are talking about Tamar Bates and being that guy, but I think when you look at it from top to bottom, this team needs Jordan Geronimo to find his role very early on in the season and get very much cemented into that role and grow within that role throughout the season, because he's one of the most versatile players around the country in terms of what he can do with his athletic ability. But he hasn't found outside of that athleticism what his specific role is going to be. So once he does that, I think Indiana will do pretty well with that front court rotation. But until that point, I think it's going to be still a lot of kind of hit or miss and inconsistencies throughout the especially non-conference portion of the schedule.
Another question that's come from Indiana fans, and this is a question from the audience here from Lee Butler. Any hope for Anthony Leal and his play improving and increasing? I talked to him yesterday. He seemed really confident. He has his realtor's license, by the way. So he's a smart cookie, and he's looking to the future very quickly. Very, very smart move.
Yeah, I mean, I think you obviously look at the skill set that he has, and it's been shooting the basketball. Hasn't found a lot of minutes consistently. He's had some nice moments in the first couple of years in Indiana, but you look at the shift from Archie Miller to Mike Woodson and what Indiana was looking for in the backcourt, and that's more athletic, bigger, physical, longer type guards. And while Anthony Leal's not small by any means and not unathletic, he's just not as built in terms of what that skill set is. And if he can find that shooting stroke and find that consistently, obviously he's going to have a role on this team. But if he doesn't, it'll be kind of those inconsistent minutes that he saw last year. And I think still going into this year, that's what you're going to see with him. But I think Indiana needs some sort of shooting ability at the back end of that rotation, whether that be from CJ Gunn, whether that be from Anthony Leal, because you look off the bench and there's not a lot of shooting. We just talked about Jordan Geronimo. Malik Renault's not going to light it up from the outside. Trey Galloway, we know what he is at this point, and that's not a prolific shooter. And Kamar Bates has been inconsistent at best when it comes to his shooting ability in his first year. So where's that shooting going to come from? And a lot of that's probably going to be at the back half and back into that rotation in an Anthony Leal or a CJ Gunn in very specific moments that Dustin brought up earlier in terms of playing that role and kind of having a very specific need when you're on the floor.
Well, Alec, appreciate it, brother. Make sure, like I said, you give Alec a follow on Twitter at Al Lasley and the Hoosier.com. If you do not have a subscription, you should, because they are keeping you up to date on everything from recruiting and IU news on down. Alec, thank you very much, brother. We got a big game this weekend, Indiana football with Cincinnati. You can also, there's several predictions in there and several stories in the Hoosier.com previewing that game as well.
Yep, absolutely. You guys have a good weekend.
Thank you, brother. Alec Lasley joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as we are coming to you from the lovely confines of BB's Market. As there's several people coming in, sitting down here now. Looking forward to it. We're having a great day. We've got the Red Zone coming up today with Mitchell Paige and Jeffrey the Greek, and we still have Zach Osterman to go yet. So it's a busy day coming up here. Brought to you by our good friends at Barbara Pop Real Estate Services down in southern Indiana, Louisville. If you're looking for a home in that area, they have served Louisville and southern Indiana for 3 decades. No one can get you in the home you want better or faster than Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapoprealestateservices.com or Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapoprealestateservices.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana
That's a lot
Sports
to
Beat
remember,
Radio
boy.
with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore. Yeah, I just think he's content with playing out. And once I heard that he had his real estate license, oh yeah, but he's smart. Once I heard he had his real estate license, I'm like, oh boy, he's going, boy. He'll be killing it. He'll be in awesome shape. You guys get some breakfast? Don't make sure it's all me.
Morning, Zach.
Hey.
Have you been on with Jim since he started doing these Fridays at BB's? I think you have once, haven't you?
Yeah.
Hopefully his sense of time is on point. He's got 40 seconds.
What do you think about football this week?
3-0, but by the grace of God, we pray, I think.
This is going to be a tough one.
I like that shirt Zach's got on.
Oh, yeah. All right, 20 seconds, Jim. Do you hear me?
I did.
Okay. All right, here we go.
More from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Football. I think Deshaun McCullough is going to really be good. He's a nice.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Friday, as we have been from BB's Market in Bloomington. Make sure you stop by and get yourselves ready for your tailgating or anything going on for the weekend. Best meets around, that I can guarantee you. Welcome in Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Zach, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you, Jim?
Great. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com with me as always, as usual. Yesterday we had IU Basketball Media Day to kind of step in the middle of football season here a little bit, but great way to kick off things. IU Media Department did a great job with that, making it easier for a lot of us. Fun getting out and getting things going. The fans enjoy seeing seeing the players and hearing from all of those guys, talking to them. It seems to be a difference between last year, a little more confidence. Mike Woodson seems to be definitely soaked into his job a little bit more as a college coach now. What was your take from yesterday's festivities?
I mean, I enjoyed it. It was very, in the few times I've been tapped in to help like Pacers Media Day, it reminded me a lot of that. Just kind of everybody, sort of like a season launch, essentially. And, sort of a state of the union from the coach and, a couple players that are going to be the guys everybody wants to talk to might have a bigger media session. But then just in general, then it's kind of a scrum and you can just kind of go and pick and choose and get what you need. I enjoyed doing the women and the men at the same time too. I think, and this is a completely separate discussion. I think that for too long, it has felt like those two programs existed in bubbles apart from one another when I don't really think they should. They're each their own program, and they have to kind of do their own thing, but they share a building, they share ambitions, they literally play the same sport. So, why throw up any walls between them? As for, just kind of the mood, if you want to say, I mean, there was nothing that, I'd be curious if you felt any different. There was nothing that jumped out to me. There was nothing that I was like, wow, I didn't know that before. We didn't hear anything about, injuries or anything like that. To JD Campbell's credit, we've talked to a lot of these guys through the summer. So I think yesterday was just kind of maybe an extension or a clarification because the season is a lot closer of, their mindset going into it. There were little bits and pieces. Xavier Johnson, I thought, faced up to his whole off-the-court situation pretty directly, at least when I was talking to him about it.
Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to Xavier. He's one of the guys I did not get a chance to talk to. So I didn't see or hear anything.
He just said, basically, I thought my career was over. I thought I'd ruined my last chance, and I got screwed up again, But in general, I think it's just, I guess part of the whole media day experience was the reminder that this Indiana team has continuity. That there's things we don't know about this Indiana team, but we don't have these sort of mammoth philosophical questions about IU basketball this year. That's one of the reasons why they're a Big Ten favorite.
Yeah, I think that they have added the pieces that they were missing last year. We don't know about the three-point shooting, but in the last segment I talked about this team does not have to be a prolific three-point shooter. They just have to be efficient, be smart, because they have so many weapons in so many different places. The depth should be better. I can't say it's going to be better until we see it, but it sure seems like it's going to be better. And that should make a huge difference because that was a problem for Indiana last year. They just weren't as deep as people thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that also kind of waned as the season went on. Parker Stewart seemed to hit a bit of a wall. Obviously, Trey Galloway had some injury issues, and Rob Finney as well. Missed, what was it? I'm looking at his numbers now. 7 games, dead. Smack in the middle of Big Ten play. So between kind of injuries, and obviously there was the one Northwestern game where a lot of guys were suspended, but between injuries and even a guy like Parker, who I don't think was necessarily carrying an injury, but really did seem to just kind of physically hit a wall toward the end of last season. I do think Indiana wound up not being as deep as we expected them to be. It is worth saying they looked a lot better in the last basically month of the season. They had a stretch of 6 games in late January and February where they did not, according to Ken Pomeroy, calculations anyway, average 1 point per possession offensively. Then from there, they played, if I'm looking at this and doing the math right, they played 9 games from February 24th on. They only had 1 game in that entire stretch where they had an adjusted offensive efficiency lower than their lowest stretch in the previous 6 games, if that makes sense. And that was the Illinois win in the Big Ten tournament. It was narrowly better than their adjusted efficiency in the win over Maryland on the road. But it just kind of gets back to the idea that they can be fixed. If you look at that stretch, they're not suddenly raining threes. They had a couple nice games from behind the arc. They hit 10 at Minnesota. They were 8 of 15 at Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. But they did find some things that made them more efficient offensively, even sometimes without the 3. Trace Jackson-Davis went up a huge level. Xavier Johnson went up a huge level. And it's not like that necessarily fixed depth. But when we talk about depth in terms of it not just being physical bodies, but also options, also, wrinkles you can throw into a game plan, the versatility of the lineup you have on the floor. I do think Indiana built some of that toward the end of last season. But now, when you confront a team that's going to have greater ambitions, the season can't kind of be quite the same laboratory experiment, if you understand what I'm saying. You've got to know what you have in a Jalen Hood-Schifino or a Trey Galloway or whomever, beyond the, if you want to say the big 3 of, Xavier Johnson, Trace Jackson-Davis, Race Thompson. The guys behind them are more proven now, and the guys behind them need to be more consistent, whether it's, with health is one part of it, but also like Tamar Bates, just be more consistent with his performances. Jordan Geronimo, same thing. Even these freshmen to some extent. Can you be more consistent? Because that's a function of depth too.
Yeah, the freshmen particularly, every year any freshman that comes in, they're going to tell you they have confidence and all that. But I believe it from all of these freshmen. Jalen Hood-Schifino is not even a question. He's not really a freshman. He's like a freshman plus. CJ Gunn, I know, has a lot of confidence. Caleb Banks, from everything I've heard, he has been playing well. And Malik Raynaud has been battling for playing time. So it's a different group of freshmen, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the 2 highest freshmen in the Big Ten in terms of their national ranking and signing. I don't think it's a surprise that Indiana feel like a team that is going to get some quality freshman contribution. On the other hand, Indiana's kind of Indiana's not a bad team for some of those guys to be going into because you don't need to go too heavily on them. I've been putting together my preseason conference stuff, my votes, my poll, my ballots. Illinois is the team that I'm probably going to pick to win the league. In fact, they're the team I have picked to win the league. They got a lot of talent. And they might be starting a freshman at point guard who could be very good in Sky Clark. But Sky Clark's going to have to be pulling together some pieces, 2 transfers, a couple guys stepping into larger roles, a team, frankly, completely changing its style offensively and defensively without Kofi Coburn. And I recognize I just said I'm picking them to win the league, so I'm not trying to just trashing Illinois. But you can go all over Ohio State. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a freshman point guard this year starting. Bruce Thornton. You're going to be asking a lot of him. Whereas, even if Jalen Hood-Schifino is starting, and I think he, my educated guess right now is he will, you don't have to ask too much of him. You don't have to say, hey, go handle the ball for 35 minutes a night. Go use 29% of possessions. We need you to score 14 and assist 5.5 a night. They can let him find his niche, let him ease in some different ways, and then maybe get the best out of him basically as the season goes along, essentially. And so that's, I think, the other side of the coin with Indiana's freshmen, and we can have that conversation with any of those guys. I think we all expect probably will not start, but Indiana's bigs should have been raving about him all offseason. Bryce Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, can't say enough about him. Caleb Banks, everybody seems to be like, hey, you need to understand this guy's got something to him. He's young, he's raw, but like he could be really, really good. And then CJ Gunn is quite possibly the best shooter of the team. And obviously, as we discussed for 5 years, and he needs shooting. So you can kind of say that about any of them, that if they're ready for this level now, Indiana can afford to let them kind of ease their way in and soften the impact if they step in, because they've got guys that can hold the fort down while those freshmen figure some things out.
Just a couple minutes left, but changing gears a little bit. Indiana on the road this weekend in football at Cincinnati, a game that started out as like an 8-point line and jumped to 17, which was crazy. And Vegas is usually pretty good at what they do. I'm having a hard time rectifying that in my mind, but this Indiana team has had issues with offense. They've had great moments, but they've had big voids in between. The defense has played okay, but the tackling has still been an issue. And Cincinnati is a team that once they get it together, they're very talented. They've got 85% of their team back from a college football playoff team. So this is going to be a tough challenge for Indiana in a tough environment in that little bandbox of a stadium at Nippert Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said, like, that is not an easy place to play. And, I mean, this is a program that's accustomed to winning, and not just under Luke Fickell. Like, think about
30. I think they have a 30-game winning streak there right now, don't they?
Yeah, something like that. But I'm even thinking, I mean, like, Mark D'Antonio got to, was at Cincinnati before Michigan State. Brian Kelly was at Cincinnati before Notre Dame. Butch Jones was at Cincinnati before Tennessee. They've done a lot of
great coaches.
A lot of winning. Like, even if you go look at, like, Tommy Tuberville, like, he wasn't anywhere near what those guys did. He still won. He just didn't win nearly what they did, and so it didn't feel like it was going to be sustainable. They wanted to move on. That's a place that expects to win. It is obviously a place that I think, it is a matchup. To your point, Cincinnati does not feel like the finished article themselves in the way that they would have last year, where you would have known these are the alphas. This is how it works. This is what it looks like. This is what they do. I am a little bit surprised, and I think you were kind of saying this too, at the gap between Indiana and, whether it's the computer projections or where Vegas is at. I think Indiana should be an underdog. I think, frankly, unless some things change, and they may, Indiana's going to be an underdog just about every game from here on out. Maybe Maryland at home, the exception. Maybe Rutgers on the road, another exception. But I don't think Cincinnati is perfect in some way that Indiana can't touch. And I am curious just at how this game goes, because I think it is the sort of game where Indiana could go there and Cincinnati could cover, and Indiana could lose, 45-21, Indiana could lose 45-21, and we'd all say, well, okay, it's clear this team's still got some work to do. That not everything was going to get fixed overnight. This doesn't derail all their ambitions for the season. But if Indiana goes there and puts in a really scrappy performance, certainly if Indiana goes there and wins, start to feel like maybe this team has something about it. I had Bill Connolly on our podcast this week, and he said, he basically just said like Northwestern does this once every few years where they're not really the computers don't love them, the rankings don't love them, but they just find a way to win a lot of one-score games, and suddenly they're 10-3. I don't think Indiana's going 10-3, to be very clear, but teams do this sometimes where they basically just, while they are still imperfect, while they are still growing and learning and figuring out how to be the best version of themselves, they close enough gaps to win the close games. And then as the season rolls along, they get better and better. And then, at the end of the year, they're 8-4, 9-3. I think in Indiana's case, optimistic would be more like 7-5. But I don't think that's out of the question. I do think this is maybe the first game Indiana's played where, on the one hand, Indiana could lose by a comfortable margin Saturday, and you wouldn't feel like it was reflective of basically some fatal flaw. But on the other hand, if this makes any sense, a game that feels like it's going to prove something to us about Indiana. And I don't know if I can quite square those statements because they do feel a little bit opposite.
I said that last week, and I was not quite right.
Well,
I thought that would be the game, but it wasn't.
I think Western Kentucky is a good team. They're a good program. I wasn't surprised that game. I mean, how it actually unfolds. Obviously, Indiana needing Western Kentucky to miss a kick and they block a kick. Sure, that's low percentage. If you told me Indiana was going to win 33-30, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds about right.
That was like last year.
with Cincinnati, and Illinois was this way a little bit too, but Cincinnati in particular, this is the sort of game that you look at and say, if you can be competitive, if you can take it down to the wire, certainly if you can win in Cincinnati, then Rutgers on the road is in play, Maryland and Purdue at home are in play, Nebraska on the road is in play, maybe even something like a Penn State at home, or if the stars align for you and Michigan State on the road is in play. You go to Cincinnati and you lose comfortably. You like the Bearcats cover. Then maybe we go back to seeing this team. It's like, okay, maybe 6 is the hard ceiling. And it's a question of whether or not they can get to 6-6. I just think that this is the biggest challenge Indiana's had to this point and all offseason. And I know we're running short, so I'll keep it brief as I can here. I ramble. All offseason, we said these first 5 weeks were going to be so telling for Indiana because they needed to beat Illinois to get off to the good start. They needed to win their next 2 because you can't go to a bowl game if you don't win those games. No matter how you win them, you just need to win them and move on. And then you had these 2, Cincinnati and Nebraska, both on the road. These are the games that tell you, like, is Indiana going to be able to compete against the serious teams it has to beat to get to a bowl game? And the answer is yes.
Yep, we'll certainly find out. Zach Osterman, thank you so much. Mindy Star, make sure you're following him and be a subscriber. Keep local papers alive. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, and safe trip to Cincinnati.
Appreciate you. We'll see you over there.
Yes, sir. Great weekend for Zach. Thanks a lot for joining us. We've got lots more coming up here as we're coming to you from BB's Market, of course. We've got a great crowd here with us. Lee and Helen and Larry over here, and then there's a whole group over there that I don't even know. They're just enjoying breakfast. But great crowd out here, and look forward to it. Make sure you come out and stop by. Brian Carroll, I can't believe he's going down to the grouper, baby, from Orleans. Yeah, they don't have a grouper in Orleans. That's one of my favorite little towns. Orleans, great little spot. Much more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat because it's time for the Red Zone, baby. That means Dustin, Schutte, Jeffrey the Greek, former Hawkeye player and former Indiana standout, Mitchell Paige. We're back with more. Brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, located down off of 6th Street, right off the square, catty corner from Cabello, in the former Function location. Metalworks is a combination of a great love of craft beer, metal art, and a desire to be a deep part of the community here. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from BB's Market right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Hey, this is John.
One of the games, I slipped one of my cards.
What's up, Greek?
How we doing?
Good.
How's it
Hey,
going?
Dustin, I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that
Mitchell and joining us?
won't be with us. So when Jim gets back, we'll explain it to him. You need to explain the situation and preview essentially what the podcast is about, because I don't want to spoil it for Jeffrey. We'll get his reaction when Dustin explains it. But we recorded our podcast last night, and right when we started, Mitchell got himself into a situation that is likely affecting while he's still not here.
Ooh, I like the sounds of this.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell it nearly as well as what the podcast.
Yeah, well, it's a good little teaser. Just and explain that it'll release today at 1:00, and they can get the full story of it.
Let me tell you, if I was Mitchell, I would not be joining us today.
I told him he didn't have to. I said, do not feel like you have to be here.
Color me intrigued.
This food is incredible. It's $15 for an entree. I'm like, that's crazy.
And he was such a good sport. He seemed very like, if I was in his situation last night, I think I would have been a lot more pissed off than he seemed, at least on the air. And Dustin, since Jim may jump in right when we come back, please interject and explain the situation, because Jim has no idea. I haven't had a chance to explain it to him.
Okay.
Brown County. I've never heard that. Hold on, let me check. I've got some Dodgers outside. You guys want one? Hey, how are we on time?
You got about a minute.
I got a minute to actually do it.
I don't think he can do it. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm not gonna lie, I hate doing these remotes.
I think I mean, he's already all over the place, and now he's Uber all over the place.
I mean, it's a good time for him. People get to go out and say hey, but it's a production nightmare. You should have seen one of our first segments. It wasn't a disaster, but it felt like a disaster.
It wasn't a disaster, but it was a disaster.
From my point of view. Oh, Mitchell's here. Mitchell, hey.
He made it.
We're 15 seconds from coming back. You know what you have to do. I'm not even going to say anything.
Look at that.
The situation.
Look at that outfit. He's ready, man.
A golf club at Eagle.
Oh my God! I cannot wait to hear what's going on here.
Experience.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford.
Oh,
Now back
I'll
to
get you. I'll take care of you.
Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle.
I'll swap that out in a minute.
Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is getting crazy here at BB's Market. We've got a great crowd. John, if you've got the camera on. Mitchell, turn your phone sideways for us.
No, he's what?
There you go.
God,
oh, you don't have it. You don't have it set on landscape auto rotate.
No, I mean
So
that looks outrageous. I'll just put it a little closer to my face. Is that better?
Closer to your face. Can you get it like? Can you
I want to see
like
your nose hairs. I want to see your nose hairs. Otherwise, it don't
I'm
count.
gonna be honest, Jim. After the night that I had, this is what you're getting. This is it.
Well, we need to hear about the night,
dude. So last night, John and Dustin and I are recording this week in Indiana football. All of you should listen. And 30 seconds after we start recording, I'm in the mountains. I'm actually driving back up to Bloomington as we speak from Charleston. So I'm in the mountains.
you didn't make it here in time.
Oh, no. The plan was, my estimated time of arrival was 1 a.m. this morning.
Okay. That's all way off, brother. Where did you go through Philadelphia?
You're on mute.
His CarPlay took over. This was a constant issue last night.
The same thing is happening to you now that must have happened to you last night.
It did. It was on his CarPlay. It kept reconnecting, unconnecting. adding to his
Am I
level
back?
of frustration. He's
You're
back.
You are.
I got a phone call, and I don't know. I'm in a rental car that I don't know how to work. It is the most infuriating thing. It goes back and forth. I had it on Bluetooth, then it goes to whatever. So that was the problem that I was already having. But we're in the mountains, not a lot of reception. We're trying to record the podcast. We start recording for 30 seconds. I'm coming around a turn. It's pitch dark, and it smells like burnt rubber. 500 feet in front of me, a semi fell onto its side and blocked both lanes.
Oh,
And we lose him
happened
at the
again.
moment. Man, you're lucky you weren't crushed.
Oh, he's back. He's back to silence, folks.
Back to silence, Mitch.
He's
Your car,
gonna.
we love it.
He's gonna. This is like Smart House. I don't know if you guys have seen the Smart House Disney movie. I made this comparison last night where the house just completely takes over. That's Mitchell's car because it just completely takes everything away from him.
Mitchell, drop and come back
okay.
in.
Oh boy, that we were just getting to the good part.
Well, while we're waiting for that, how's Jeffrey the Greek?
I'm great. It's Friday, had a great week of work. Ready for the weekend.
Oh boy, have you got your games selected?
Oh yeah.
Now,
All right,
Am I
Mitchell,
back
go
now?
quick.
Let's
Go
see
quick
what-
before it disconnects you.
So the problem is this guy, this is a separate issue. Do you ever have people that call you once, you don't answer, and then they just call you immediately again?
Right back.
Like, if I didn't answer the first time, I didn't just not see it. I'm doing something. I will call you back. So that's what happened. Guy calls me 45 times a day. That's another issue. But so I'm driving. This semi flips over, blocks the highway, and it's the section of the highway through the mountains there where there's like 25 miles without an exit. Not
Where
sure
you
if you're
can't go
familiar
anywhere.
are with that. Oh, can't go anywhere. So I was blocked, just sitting on the highway with my car off, taking swings with my 9-iron for 4 hours.
Oh,
Just sitting there. I did the whole podcast, sat there for 2.5 additional hours, just nowhere to go. So that's why I'm not in Bloomington at BB's Market with you, doing the show from there.
ooh.
How's your
It was
4-hour game?
Dude, my golf game's tempo right now, after how many practice swings I took, is absolutely pure.
You know, last year I went outside. I was trying to work on my swing, and I just tried to get it down to be repetitive, and took like 100 swings. I ended up hurting my back because I wasn't hitting anything. There was no resistance, and I was just swinging hard, and then it took me a couple weeks to get over that.
Oh, guys, check this out. Last night, I was making dinner for my kids, and my 4-year-old spilled it. Oh, are we just talking about crap that's happening in our everyday lives here? Or what are we doing? Are we gonna talk some football, or are we gonna just bring everybody in the audience around for what happens to us? No, don't get me wrong.
I got Michigan over Maryland, baby, and I am giving
don't
it
get me wrong. Mitchell's story was pretty amazing, but okay.
I was leaving out some details. This is the last thing I'll say about it that I thought was really funny. There was the police officers that were on scene. Credit to them. It was late, hard to get everybody moving, but they came by with this big spotlight and were like looking around on the road, and he, with a straight face, looks over to his partner and says, "Yeah, you can see right here, he must have just tipped over." In the car was tipped over 500 feet in front of him. It was like, wow, you're a real detective. We've been sitting here for 2 hours. So that was icing on the cake. And I still had 2 hours left of just sitting there after he said that.
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna tell me for another movie reference that you Days and Thundered it, where it was nothing but smoke, and you just said screw it, and you hammered down because you're just gonna drive through the smoke, and then you banged into the semi.
At what?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say at one point. we were determining how Mitchell gets out of there fastest. Was it to jump in front of another car and leave in the ambulance that showed up? Was it to hit a golf ball at a police car and see if he gets escorted and arrested, and then he can post bail and leave immediately? I mean, we were trying to figure this out on the air.
So there's no way that you could have just turned around and gone back the way you came. You are 100% trapped right there.
The barrier that I was parked against was 8 feet tall, and I was just trapped by semis on all sides. There must have been 30 miles of traffic behind me. It was crazy.
All right, we're going to talk some football.
All right.
It's a beautiful day. I'll be in
My Webs wants to hear more about the Greek.
Spilled all the dinner. Can't believe it.
I need to improve my core strength. That's no doubt about that.
So what's up,
Kansas City
everybody?
salsa moves
Now
here.
that we're back,
Hey, here's two games that kind of jump out at me. Maryland, Michigan, and I'm taking Michigan until Michigan does not kick the crap out of somebody. I'm taking them.
Yeah.
Even it's only 16.5 points.
I felt pretty good about Michigan, and then DS and I recorded the Eyes on Big Pod on Wednesday, and he dropped some stats that made me feel even better about Michigan. DS, I don't know if you got any of those handy.
Under Mike Lasley, Maryland is 0-9 against ranked Big Ten opponents. Their average margin of victory or defeat is 39 points, and they've given up 50 points or more in 6 of those 9 games. And I think another one was like 48 or 49, like just under. So they are getting demolished in these. I can't use the reference I used on the Eyes on Big because this is a family show. But they take it on the chin every time they play a big-time opponent. And Michigan has looked really good on both sides of the football. And I think the fact that they're actually playing a real opponent, because I think Maryland is better than I thought they would be, but I still don't think they're elite. I think Michigan's going to want to take it to them and make a statement in this game.
I'm looking for the over/under.
63 or 65.5. I mean, that's the story of this game. Is we all know Michigan is great, possibly elite. Is this a game that finally Maryland and Locks can be even competitive in? I mean, Dustin brought up a good point again on the podcast that even if they lost the game 31-28, people would walk away saying, wow, Maryland's for real. Like, they might have a better chance of being ranked after a close loss tomorrow, as they are right now. I mean, obviously, if they won, they would be ranked. But like that, I think that's a great point. I mean, everything points to, Michigan being the better team and everything. The two things I would say that are an area of concern for me or Michigan is it is a young, untested secondary for Michigan. It's sort of a young, untested defense all around, but I think especially in the secondary, we have seen Locks scheme some stuff up, so like don't be surprised if Maryland goes right down the field and gets some points on the board. But then what happens after that will be the most interesting. And also kind of JJ McCarthy's first big boy football contest, being the starting quarterback, big noon game. So those are the couple things I would look for is how this game starts with Locks and his script, his almighty script that always looks so good at the beginning. And then the young phenom, JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I think that's.
And I had to unmute myself. Another game that is just jumping out because it's basketball schools that have gotten good all of a sudden. How about Duke and Kansas? In another lifetime, I don't know who you would have had to force me to take. But now all of a sudden, Duke is good and Kansas is a favorite in this game, which shocks me.
Those cowards at Sports Center. Game day should be in Kansas, man.
Yes. Have you watched the Kansas quarterback at all?
He's good.
I watched him last week. That kid is impressive.
Yeah.
I want Duke to win. Obviously, Kevin Johns is their offensive coordinator, who was my coach at IU, and pull for him like crazy. But Kansas is tough out of nowhere. Yeah. They play good defense, and their quarterback,
when we talk about Indiana being one of the worst football programs, in over the long haul,
Kansas
is worse.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how bad we're talking.
I mean, it was historically bad. I mean, that's another thing Dustin and I talked about on the Eyes on Big podcast. We talked about Kansas as well, because we were talking about how coaching matters. Like, lo and behold, a good coach comes in to Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, and now they're good. And it's a combination of two things. It's what Mitchell brought up. They have a quarterback, and then they have Lance Leopold. It's incredible. I mean, it's one of the best stories of the college football season so far.
Well, yeah. Who would you guys take in this game? Kansas is giving up 7.5 points at home.
I'd probably take the Blue Devils. I think they can score with anybody.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I think I would take Kansas just because I think maybe the coaching aspect, but I honestly, a coin flip for me.
Yeah,
I would take Duke, but this is a tough.
What scares me about Kansas is everybody's now in love and taking Kansas.
Yeah,
and that usually the college football gods smite you after that. So I would be nervous.
I hate being smited.
If we can avoid getting smited,
the only thing worse than being smited is being shunned.
I've had plenty of both.
I have been spited and shunned, and I'm going to spite and shun both of you right now, all of you right now. We're going to take a break. We've got lots more coming up and lots of picks coming up here in the Red Zone as we're coming to you from BB's Market here in Bloomington, brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda and Endeavor Hospitality. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up for the WOW Club today. Start earning WOW rewards today. We got lots more coming up from BB's, and we're going to make some picks when we come back with Jeffrey the Greek, Mitchell Paige, and Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're visiting...
He never sticks around long enough for me to say something. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, were you going to say...
Give me 2 seconds to be like, hey, we need to do this. Or, hey...
It's a little loud. It's a little loud in the background for Jim and Mitchell. It would be beneficial if Mitchell and Jim could mute while they're not talking.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe it's just because they're both in. Because whenever it wasn't too bad when it was just Jim, because it felt like ambient noise. But maybe with both of them, it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, that's my bad. I can mute for sure. But I definitely want to give a shout out.
I did the same thing when I was. Oh, yeah.
My mom is the only reason that I'm on this right now. I totally spaced it after like 1 hour of sleep. So, Mom, I know you're watching.
I said you didn't have to come on.
Oh, no, I'm on, baby. We're back.
Hey, Jim, don't forget to talk about Indiana, Cincinnati.
Yeah, we did that last week.
What?
Did not. We did not talk about the IU game.
Yes.
Or we'll talk about that first when we come back. IU Cincinnati.
There you go.
There's a chance Zach is still talking about Indiana right now, somewhere in the universe.
There is a chance.
Zach Osterman
is very good at just going and going and going. That's why he's a good writer.
Let's see here. So was I. Trust me. That was I was like real leery. And the funny thing is, Grace Berger goes like this. But she's wearing a.
Just remember, we're on the air right now.
No, I'm just saying. It was. I was worried about being putting that.
Yes.
That clip was hard to open. Well, it was brand new. I couldn't get that thing to open, man.
All right, here we go.
Now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios remote as we were at BB's Market here in Bloomington, located on South Walnut. Good seeing you guys. Thank you. Had a great audience today here at BB's, live audience. Appreciate all those guys that came out at breakfast. Everybody's grabbing bags of meats. I'm telling you, buddy, you cannot come here and not buy this. It's incredible. I've made pork chops. I've prepared steaks from here. Everything has been A++. It's incredible. Welcome back.
Anytime you start your weekend off grabbing bags of meat, you know it's going to be a good weekend, baby.
You're damn right. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Got to figure out when I'm going to grill on Sunday, but it's going to be good. But speaking of grilling, there's going to be some teams that get grilled this weekend. Speaking of, I had another great, almost stupendously great betting weekend last week. 2 parlays, as I usually do, a 3 and a 4 team. This time I was smart enough to not have any crossover. None whatsoever. The only in close was I took Oklahoma and the points in one, and I took the under in another. And I got saved on that because when I was placing the bet, they raised the over-under from 61 to 66. And I remember it says, do you accept these changes? I'm like, hell yes. But I see, I forget there's the games. I won them all, except for one game. One game was going late into the night, and I'm waiting because I'm still winning. I had 24 points, and I'm like, come on. And it was, 14-0 at the time, and I got a lot of hope.
We're talking Iowa, Nevada.
Oh, yeah. We're talking your Hawkeyes, Jeffrey. We're talking to the offense that cannot score, led by the quarterback that cannot throw touchdown passes. And what does he do? That was a touchdown pass. They scored, 2 or 3 touchdowns. Gosh, dang it. And I still was a field goal short of a push, and Nevada missed an easy field goal. They gave up a ridiculously easy touchdown at the end of that game. That was a $1,000 payout. That cost me.
Oh, I mean, you just can't bet against Spencer Petras, baby. It's going to get you at some point.
The Big Ten West is out. I'm no more. No more Big Ten West teams.
Good. I'm all for you disassociating with the Big Ten West in any form that we can take it.
The Big Ten West is now being spited and shunned by me.
No betting interest in those.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So this week, what's jumping out at you, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Michigan to cover. The other one that I like, I mean, if we're just talking straight betting, is I like the under in Penn State and Miami, or Penn State. Why can't I find it on my sheet? Who's Penn State playing?
Oh, damn it, I saw
Central
it too.
Michigan, excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that
The
the Chippewa. So under 63 in that game, that just seems like get up 28-0, sleepwalk your way to the rest of the game. People leave by the third quarter because nobody wants to be there. I think it's something that's been one of my favorite gambling things is right around the third, fourth week of the season. These FCS and group of 5 teams that are all full of piss and vinegar at the beginning of the year to take down the P5 team. They don't want that smoke quite as much at this point in the year. You saw it last night with the Chattanooga Mocs. They just got ran out of the stadium versus Illinois. You know, if that game's played at the beginning of the year, honestly, I think you'd probably see a little bit different. And I think you're going to see the same thing with Central Michigan and Penn State. So you can take Penn State to cover for sure. I wouldn't mind that, but I really like that staying under 63.
Mitchell?
Sorry, I'm on. Yeah, I'm trying to. Sounds like there's some background noise for me, so I'm trying to stay on mute. I'm a little biased, but I like the Hoosiers to cover. I think they're going to be.
Well,
yeah, I think they're going to play tough. I think there's some bad blood from last year. I feel like this is an Indiana team that's a lot better than they were last year in a lot of the phases of the game. And last year they punched them in the mouth. So I think there's going to be some vengeance on the mind of the Hoosiers. And I don't know what the line is now, but I would have taken them at 16.5 when I saw it last night.
So one of the things that we talked about on the This Week in Indiana Football is, and the 16.5 when I first saw it looked pretty sizable in favor of Cincinnati. And then Greek sends me notes each week before we do the Eyes on Big. And with the over-under at 57, the final score is, basically 37-20 type of thing. And then I looked at that score, and all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I could definitely see that kind of score from that kind of game. It was really weird to put it in perspective from the score, because you look at 16.5 and you think, wow, I don't know if there's that much difference. But then you look at the actual score of what's projected, and then I think, okay, yeah, I could see something like that happening. So it's going to be very interesting. I think Indiana covers too, because I think they'll get off to a little bit of a better start than Cincinnati. But ultimately, I don't think IU has enough firepower, and their defense has a lot of question marks to keep up and win that game.
Yeah, Louisville? How bad is South Florida? Because Louisville is a 14-point favorite at home.
They're bad.
All right, that answers that. What's next? What's the game that stands out?
Well, obviously Minnesota, Michigan State. I mean, to me, that's the Big Ten game of the weekend without a doubt.
What's that? I haven't seen the spread on that yet. I'm tempted to see it
Gophers by 3. Over under is 51 in that game. So obviously Sparty was just a week ago was ranked almost top 10. Were they in the top 10? They might have been.
Yes, they were 9th, I think.
And then they went out west and got boat raced by Indiana's own native son, Kalen DeBoer. I don't know if he's actually from Indiana, but I'll say this. I mean, I have definitely learned how much Indiana fans appreciate Kalen DeBoer. And it's a name I've learned from you folks that, and now he's catching fire. Now nationally people know who Kalen DeBoer is.
Nebraska.
Potentially.
They would be stupid not to talk to him.
I agree. I mean, as an Iowa fan, I hope they don't. But
as someone who covers Indiana, I promise you, the IU fans do not want him coming back to a team that they would have to play. He's just good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love that matchup for Washington. I picked Washington to cover last week, got absolutely torched by Sparty fans on Twitter. Those Sparty fans aren't quite as cocky right now as they were a week ago. With that being said, I think you're going to see a much different Michigan State team, in the woodshed, playing at home, afternoon game. Minnesota is not the type of team to touch you up through the air as much as, obviously they want to run the ball at you. So you could talk me into either team for the spread. I would take Minnesota, but I like the under in this one as well. I think Michigan State's going to do everything they can to slow down Mo Ibrahim. I think it's going to be kind of a check down, slow down game that'll go pretty quick, and I like the under.
This should be a great game. Another week where Michigan State's involved in a big time game, and similar type offense. Air attack. They gave up, I don't know, almost 400 yards to Michael Penix last week.
Yeah.
How many he threw? 340, whatever it was he threw for. And
the big Penix energy was palpable on Saturday night.
I'm telling you, it was, it was raging out there in the Pacific Northwest. Let's see what else what other games? What's one of your favorite games?
I mean, obviously we got to talk about Iowa Rutgers Puntageddon. I mean, this is going to be the greatest punter matchup in the history of college football.
Iowa Rutgers. What is the over and under that game? 12?
Well, it's 34, and in some places it's 34, and in some places it's 33.5, which if that's where it settles, it will be a new record for a game total.
Which would be incredible. I'm way more interested. We talked about this. Greek suggested the over-under in number of punts. I suggested over-under in field position average, because it's going to those two things are going to almost, I think they're going to offset, which adds to the level of intrigue of this game.
I would shock you. I would possibly take the over in this game.
I did take the over.
Iowa showed me that they can score against teams that aren't that good, and Rutgers can probably score enough to help the over get over. So
I think, I wouldn't be, if Rutgers gets over 10 points, I think they're having a good day is the problem.
Oh, that's all I'm counting on. That's all I would be counting on.
Okay.
Here's the thing with
is a lot to ask for Iowa, but
you could see a total scoring, just an outpouring of scoring at 17-14, and the Hunter still hits.
Right, for sure. Or like I joked with Dustin, I don't know how either team comes back from a 6-0 deficit.
Right.
What is the actual spread in that game?
7.5.
Iowa?
Yeah.
Is that at home?
That's at Rutgers, and it's a night game, which I'm not happy about. But it started at 6.5 most places, so it's actually gone up towards Iowa.
How about Notre Dame at North Carolina? It was pick'em earlier in the week. Now Notre Dame is getting 1.5, so basically still pick'em.
I think Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is butt cheeks. So I would take North Carolina. Another ACC game I like is Clemson. Every time they play Wake Forest, they just manhandle them. So I like Clemson -7 as well.
There's another game, Florida Gators at Tennessee. Tennessee getting 10.5 points.
Take Tennessee and run.
Okay.
Take Tennessee and run.
So I'm with you, Dustin, like on paper and what you've seen, because you've seen how bad the Florida offense is. And after you spoke on how bad it was, I looked into it and I'm like, wow, that is bad. I mean, they haven't thrown a touchdown pass yet. They are into Patrician levels of passing. But it's Florida, Tennessee. This game is bananas. Something stupid happens all the time. It's one of those deals where you have to listen to regional podcasts, but they talk about, that's the stuff they talk about, and you have to take that into account. So maybe it's something that you wind up taking the points, but 100% everything screams Tennessee, like you're saying.
All right, we got to get to Indiana, Cincinnati. It's going to be a tough place to play. That's been sold out. It's a little bandbox stadium. It's going to be really loud. I think Indiana is going to play better than they have, but that's a 26-game winning streak they have there. Of course, a lot of that has come against teams that aren't that good. And it's not that I don't think Indiana can win the game, but if I was betting, golly, I would take Indiana in the points, but I think that Cincinnati's going to win that game.
I agree. I don't have much to add to that.
Yeah, I think I'll be the only one that takes the Hoosiers. I actually have them winning 31-28 was my pick last night. I'm sticking to it. They've found a way to win when they shouldn't win 3 times already this year. And I think they're just a team that is scrappy. And that's what you need to do to win games like this. And I think
Connor Bazelak has shown it doesn't matter what time it is. That doesn't matter to him. He can focus, and seems like they really all come into focus at time. And they haven't made mistakes during those stretches. That has been a major thing. I've seen Cincinnati make tons of dumb mistakes at crucial times.
Yeah, like I said on the podcast to Dustin, a Tommy Allen and a Tommy Allen coach team, it's like a zombie. The body blows won't do anything. You got to cut the head off. So the Bearcats better cut the head off, because otherwise Indiana's just going to keep coming.
What's your pick?
I got Cincinnati to cover, but by a half a point. I don't like this either way. I mean, I think Cincinnati's a more complete team. I don't trust the Hoosiers defense, but the line, I don't like it.
My pick is Hoosiers by 1 million. I said 31-28, but in my heart, Hoosiers by 1 million. We're the best team in the country. That's what I think.
Bam!
Robert says Indiana cannot get down on the road.
Jim, we got to wrap up.
All right, we got to wrap up. Man, it's always so much fun. Guys, I can't thank you enough. We'll check in, see how we did on Monday. It has been an absolute blast, as always. I can't thank you guys enough. We're going to have to start doing an extra segment. It gets going too much fun after this. But Greek, make sure you give the Greek a follow, and the Eyes on Big Pod with Big Kurt. Don't forget that. Follow Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com. Our man Mitchell Paige. He's just a worldwide celebrity. You just need to follow him, period. And if you're looking for a commercial or any kind of real estate around the United States, he's the guy. Man, big thanks to everybody here at BB's Market. Of course, another tremendous week and big time. Thanks to everybody that came out today, Lee and Alan and Larry was here, and there guys, there's so many I can't remember all their names. Thank them so much. Most importantly, thanks to you guys, John, the producer, as well. Without you guys, we have no reason to be here. Go out and have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday to do it again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports